Welcome everyone to Ask a Coach. My name is Kirsty, and today we'll be talking about a topic that evokes great fear in many people across the globe, and that is rejection. Today's video is for people who hate rejection, and I'm pretty certain that's every single person on the planet, and how to never feel rejected again. So, what if I told you that rejection doesn't actually exist? Would you think I'd lost the plot? I can hear the echoes of listeners saying, "What? I felt rejection yesterday when I pitched an idea at work and they tossed it out." What if I could also tell you that you could reframe any situation so you have the power to dictate how you feel and respond to any situation so you never feel rejected again? If you're curious to find out, please reserve your judgment, open your mind, and let's dive in. Okay, let's start with what exactly is rejection. According to the Oxford Dictionary, rejection is the dismissing or refusing of a proposal or idea. And imaging brain scans show that when a person is socially rejected, the same areas of the brain get activated as when we suffer physical pain. So it's no wonder that we try and do whatever it takes to avoid rejection. But why do we feel rejection? Humans have an innate need to feel connection with others and to feel a sense of belonging that is critical to our mental, physical, and emotional health and overall well-being. So with this being such a strong drive in human beings, and in days gone by, if we were rejected from our tribe, it would lead to certain death. So the base fear of rejection and fitting in drives us to live a life that may not be authentic to ourselves. And as a result of that, we stay in our comfort zones so as not to rock the boat. This results in leading a disingenuous and often small life, which can be very unfulfilling and unsatisfying. And who wants that? But what if we didn't have to avoid it? What if we could live the rest of our lives feeling completely free of the fear of rejection? So, the next step is to open your mind to the possibility that rejection doesn't exist. And the way I'm going to do this is by relaying a story of one of my clients. But first, let's have a look at a few common examples of the type of rejection people experience. Number 1, you ask someone on a date and they say no. Number 2, you apply for a job and they accept another candidate. Number 3, you suggest an idea at work and management rejects it. Let's start with a real life example of what the majority of people would perceive as rejection in a dating scenario. And whilst I'm relaying this story, ask yourself, how would you interpret the series of events, and would you feel rejected in the same scenario? A client of mine went on a date with a very physically attractive executive. He was very confident, he was self-assured, and so was my client. So when they met, sparks flew, there was really good chemistry, they really liked being around each other. And he invited her back to his apartment for a coffee. And after an interesting conversation, he went in for a kiss. And after a while, he started making moves to escalate the situation. But my client likes to take her time rather than jumping into bed immediately. So she requested that they leave that to a later date, which he reluctantly agreed to. On the second date, they went out for dinner and again went back to his house for a cup of coffee. And once again, he tried to push the physical and she had to remind him of her boundaries. To which he suddenly stood up, folded his arms and stated, "I've slept with 30 fitness models in the last 12 months on the first date and you are making me wait." So basically he was implying that she was some hideous wildebeest by comparison and that every woman would jump on him if they got the chance. My client understandably felt extremely hurt, grabbed her stuff and left immediately, And obviously she felt extremely rejected, and it made her feel very conscious and self-conscious about her figure. Even though by modern beauty standards, she would be considered a physically attractive woman. After a few days of silence, said date made contact and apologized and requested that she hear him out, and she reluctantly agreed. And it was very interesting because he explained that the reason he'd said what he'd said was because, in fact, he'd been obese his whole life until only a few years earlier. And he'd struggled to find women who found him sexually attractive and wanted to be intimate with him. And when she declined his sexual advances, which he perceived as rejection, he became triggered. His body flooded with anger, and he projected all of his pain onto her. Now, she didn't go on any further dates with him, understandably, but the situation gave her a great epiphany. And that was that the whole situation had nothing to do with her. It was all about him. It was all about his issues. And even more interesting, if we look at it from the other side, from his perspective, he wanted to advance the sexual intimacy, and when she requested more time, he perceived her behavior as rejecting him, which he then internalized from his past programming. He wasn't attractive enough for her, and he was not good enough for women to want to sleep with him. But the reality was the complete opposite. She thought he was wonderful. She thought he was extremely attractive. She loved their chemistry. It was simply that her values around intimacy were different to his. So neither person was actually getting rejected, even though both people perceived it that way. How interesting is that? For her, this was extremely enlightening, as it changed the perspective and the lens in which she viewed her entire life. And whenever she experienced a perceived rejection after that, she recalled this incident and always would say to herself, this is not about me. And what this did was, it resulted in her taking more risks in life, being more open to opportunities that came her way. And it was all because the fear of rejection was completely gone. So the takeaway from this is, your perception determines how you react, and whether you choose to internalize any experience as rejection, and whether you feel the accompanying painful emotions and thoughts that come with it, that is 100% in your control. And as we saw in the dating example, there's a high chance it has absolutely nothing to do with you, and it's not personal. And when we seek validation of our own worth through other people's approval and acceptance, and the decimation of our worth when we perceive them as rejecting us, then we are essentially handing over our power to them. And don't get me wrong, it's a wonderful feeling to receive approval and acceptance from others. But if you don't get it from them, remember, the greatest approval and acceptance you'll ever need is from you. And the great thing is you can give this to yourself. So if you're interested in this, you can check out my other videos on how to accept and approve of yourself and actually meet your own needs. So let's have a look at the next part of this video and how you can reframe any scenario so you have the power to dictate how you feel and respond to any situation, so you never feel rejection again. As previously explained, one way to change your perception is to cultivate a belief that it's not personal. But the other way is to instill a belief that everything works out for your highest and best good, and that the current situation that you find yourself in is in fact just not a good fit for your growth. So here's the next story that illustrates this point. A friend of mine was a highly ranked sales professional and a top performer in a large company. And she was doing really well. She was making great money. She enjoyed her job until one day she was suddenly made redundant. So management had axed her because they were apparently paying her more than anyone else. And I will just note that the management of this company were not very bright, because they didn't take into consideration that my friend brought in the most amount of company sales. Yeah. So they learned the error of their ways shortly after she left. Anyway, back to the story. So initially my friend was very angry because she'd given them her all, she'd made them into a top ranking company, and she felt extremely rejected. However, what she came to realize was that the sales job was not her passion anyway. Her passion was actually animals. So as a result of the redundancy, she started her own business in the pet industry. And she made it into a great success. Plus she worked fewer hours, she contributed back to society, and she made more money. What she learned from this experience is that everything is always guiding her towards her greatest good. And even though something appears as bad or as rejection at first glance, it can end up being your greatest gift. Because in my friend's instance, it's likely that she would have stayed at that role for a very long time and never have known the joy and the fulfillment of following her passion and contributing back to her community. So, instilling a belief that everything works out for my highest good allows you to live in life's flow, trusting that something greater out there has your back and is guiding you towards the greatest experiences life has to offer. And what a beautiful and enriching way to live. Finally, I know some of you are thinking, well, what about if someone rejects you and they tell you in a really honest and truthful way, and it's something personal, like you have bad breath? Well, firstly, they're not rejecting you. They are simply providing helpful feedback, which you can take away from the experience and do something with it. This is brilliant because you can become a better, more minty breath person as a result of this feedback. Or you can choose to remain with your death breath, but it's up to you, it's your choice. So let's sum up this video. Number 1, rejection does not exist. The only rejection that can truly exist is if you reject yourself. Everything else is your perception. Number 2, nothing another person does to you is personal. It's always about them and their issues. Number 3, the universe is always guiding you away from something or someone that is not right for you, and is guiding you towards something or someone even better. Number 4, if people provide feedback in a kind and conscious way, use it to better yourself. So, I'm going to give you a challenge. The next time something happens where you would normally label it as rejection, I want you to test the situation against the principles discussed in this video and see if you can see it differently. And I want you to note how you feel after you've perceived it from another lens. I'd love to read in the comments section about a time in the past where you have felt rejected, and by using the information provided in this video, for you to look at it differently from a different lens, and to write in the comments section how you now see that experience in a different light. And finally, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your company and supporting my channel. And if you got any value whatsoever from this video, please help my channel out by clicking the like button and hitting the subscribe button for more videos to help you guys up level your life. I'll see you in the next video.